Call the November 5th special call board meeting to order tonight. Mr. Terry Hodge is going to lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We're here to discuss our 5-year building plan. This time we'll let Mr. Spurlock take over.
Okay, you've got two pieces of information there in front of you. You've got the building program, and then you have some ADM comparison for 3 years, or 2 years growth, excuse me. We'll take a look at our building plan first of all. As you can see, those that are highlighted in yellow, those are the ones that have already been completed, and the ones that are in blue, this is the ones that have been approved. If you look at the 2018-19, we noticed that we'll be opening up our annex, Oakland Middle School annex. Mr. Lee, when is that scheduled to open?
We're planning on having opening January the 13th.
Okay.
Will be the grand opening, and we're planning on moving the students in right after when they come back from Christmas break.
Okay. All right. And the Siegel High edition? Same thing? Okay. 13th. Okay, so we're going to be opening those two up on January 13th. You do see there that, and it's still on this building program, the Laverne High School, Smyrna High School Restrooms and Concessions. I think we've started with a design, or that's actually been where we started and ended. Is that correct, Mr. Sandvig? Okay, any questions about that one? Okay, and then you'll see the land purchase, approximately $3.25 million, $3,250,000 for some land on south of Murfreesboro to build a 2 or 3 school complex. I did speak with Mr. Clardy today, and it looks like it's going to be somewhere around 95 acres that are going to be purchased. Perhaps this will be instead of a 2 or 3, it'll be more of a 2, and this could also change with our as we look at our program. But currently, we're probably looking at a middle school, and sometime in the future, a high school. And the 840-96 corridor, $4,750,000 purchase. That's an estimate to build 3 schools there. Total, if you'll look at that, total number is $35,476,000 there. Okay, any questions on that part of it, of the 2018-19? It's pretty much the only thing that we weren't aware of there. I guess everything we're aware of there is the land purchase. Is there any other questions pertaining to that? Anything need to be removed? Anything need to be pushed back, or anything of that nature? And if you want to, while you're doing that, you can take a look at the ADM, and you can look in terms of the growth over the last 2 years. You can see where the growth is occurring. We've highlighted those areas that that we've seen the last 2 years some growth, and there's some areas where it's not growing as much. I will tell you that the elementary is not growing as high as the middle, and the high school is not growing as high as the middle also. We're seeing most of our growth in the middle school currently, and that's been a little change, I think, over if I'm not mistaken, the last few years have been in the high school.
Yeah, we need to.
Director Spurlock, may I, for the benefit of those of us that are new on the board, I'm not exactly sure what properties we're talking about.
Yes, okay. Yeah, on the south of Murfreesboro, we're talking. It's called the Matthews property, and it's kind of across from Walter Hill. Is that correct?
No,
north. I'm sorry. All right, the south, okay, I was thinking we were looking at the north, but apparently not. That's one thing we probably want to look at and move down and move the north up. On the south end, we're talking about some property off of Christiana, I think it's Christiana Road, Miller Road and Christiana Road. Is that right, Mr. Estes? You and I went out there. I think we've all come into the front end, with the exception of the new members came into the front end, but we went back and looked at some on the higher end. And quite frankly, it would be my thought there that probably this one here, and we'll talk a little bit about it, this is something we may want to look at moving down and moving another one up. If you look at the Christiana Elementary and Christiana Middle School, we have had some, over the last year or so, we've had a little change. For example, Christiana Elementary over the last, actually 3 years, I looked at it today, we've actually only added 45 students. And then from last year, 2017-18, we actually went down. In 2017-18, Christiana Elementary had 808 students, and it's gone down this year somewhat. And the other area, other thing we have to look at, of course, in the south is Barfield. Barfield in 2016-17 had its highest enrollment. There was about 1,057 students there. It's gone down since that time, and the question is, if you'll look and kind of follow that, look at Barfield, you can kind of look at their grade bands, and perhaps maybe determine where we see some drop off. But for example, at Barfield, there's 171 kindergartners this year, okay, and then 156 first graders, 156 second graders, 158 third graders, 129 fourth graders, and a total of fifth graders 177. So what we're seeing here is a little bit of decline. I think we've got the growth of negative 4.67% over this 2-year period. Now that doesn't mean it's going to stop, because there are some subdivisions that are already building out there on 231 North. I think what's that one called? Davenport Station? Davenport Station. Do you? Okay, excuse me. South. How many lots? How many building permits have been pulled for that? Yeah, for that. Couple of hundred. Okay, so that may impact. And there's another thing that's probably we don't really know how it will impact Barfield or Rockville, and that's the school that the city school is going to build, the elementary school that they're going to build. So we really don't know. We do know, though, the only growth that we're seeing when we look in that in the south area, as far as the elementary schools are concerned, is the only one that we're actually seeing in the south area is Rockville Elementary.
Director Spurlock, may I again? I'm sorry. Is there a way that we could get the capacities for each school?
Sure can. In fact, now we did this. When was it? Maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Okay, like for example, I'm going to go through now. One of the things I'll tell you about capacity, and that was one of the things that I was talking to Mr. Lee about, is they're not always 100% accurate, but the way it's utilized. It's a ballpark figure, but it doesn't work exactly. For example, Barfield, and this is not including any kind of portables or anything. Barfield has a capacity of 867 students. Christiana Elementary has a capacity of 731 students. Now, Mr. Lee, can you tell me how many, if any, portables that we have at Christiana Elementary? Okay. And while he's looking at that, I'll go over Rockville Elementary. All right, Rockville Elementary has a capacity of, according to this, of 867 students, but it's got over 1,000 now. All right, we Christiana Elementary.
We have 2 singles, 3 doubles.
All right.
Total of 8 classrooms.
2 singles and 3 doubles? Okay.
That's at Christiana?
And keep in mind, Christiana Elementary, over the last 3 years, gained, or actually 2 years, gained 45 students. So we're not seeing as great as we've seen it at Rockville. You know, Rockville, for example, elementary, over the last 2 years has gained somewhere over, way over 100, about 110, 115, something of that nature.
How many portables do we have out at Buchanan Elementary?
You can. The capacity there, and like I said, this is just a ballpark figure, was 459, and they're over 500, 550, something of that nature. And we do have land there. Is that correct? Do we have any, or we have an opportunity to purchase some land there? That's right.
Did we not have a Buchanan Elementary addition on the building plan at some point?
It was taken off. It has come up before, but I don't.
Because I thought I remembered seeing it on one, specifically on one of our building plans.
I don't think it made it through an approved version that we forwarded to the commission.
Buchanan Elementary is an odd layout.
Very.
It's very strange, and I'm afraid if we try to add on to it,
property-wise?
it's going to make an odd situation worse.
How so?
Walk in, it's like we normally walk into a building, you walk into the office, main corridor, spine, you end up walking through cafeterias to get to other wings.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it was added, and I'm not for sure whether it's been added on to before, but it's an odd layout.
So question, and I hope I'm not interfering with Ms. Sharp's questions. So just for clarification, on line 9, where it says land for South Murfreesboro, 2 or 3 schools, is this the property or the area out in Christiana that we're talking about?
That's correct.
There? Okay. So it says 2 or 3 schools, and I think at one point we were discussing that it would pretty definitively be a 3-school complex.
Absolutely.
Are we going to purchase enough land from
Yes.
that property that we can make it 3 schools if we need to?
Right, and that's what I was going to say. You know, that would be more of a 3-school property there. All right, whereas that north end on 231 would probably be
2 schools.
definitely be 2 schools.
And that Matthews property, the one out on the north end, is the one that
That's the one. That's the Matthews property.
really, really pricey.
Right. Any other questions? And like I said, we'll get you the capacity, school capacities, along with the most current enrollment. All right. Any other questions on the 2018-19 school year?
840-96, have we got any property out there that we feel like it's going to?
We did. That was the one. I think you guys have actually been there, maybe a couple of times. We actually took Mr. Estes with me driving, got in a Polaris and went. I think Mr. Lee was part of it too. It was kind of surprising. I expected the property to be a little bit more. I think one of the concerns is the elevation significant drop. You want to speak on what you saw at that property?
It's not as severe as it appears on the topographic map. There's a couple of challenges. One of the things we don't know is how much dirt's there. There is no sewer, but as far as the elevation goes, I don't think it's that big of an issue. We've stepped Rocky Fork right now. We've stepped other properties, teardrop, and the actual lay where the water goes from 96 toward the interstate would be a good location for a detention area. So from that standpoint, it's not as bad as we thought.
Is that the same piece of property, Mr. Estes, you may be able to answer this, the same piece of property when we did a weekend van tour and way back, it seems like it's been way back, we'd looked at like 5 or 6 different pieces of property out there off the 840 corridor. Is this the same one that we had really kind of as a board come to the conclusion seemed to be the best, and we presented it to the county commission and they pushed back on it? Are we talking about the same piece of property?
That was on the other side of 840.
Okay.
That was the one that they didn't want. This one's on the west side of 840, and we have access to at least 2 roads, and there's some other property that we could have a 3rd access on that we think can get with that property. Is that correct?
That's according to Mr. Carter, yes. If we could get that, we could have access to 96, Amelville Road, and Shores Road.
Right. There you
Which
go.
would get this piece of property is between 96 and the interstate.
So, but the piece that you're talking about now, is that in the same area, though? This is still the piece of land to perform that function for the 3 schools that we wanted off the 840 corridor.
Right.
That's
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Has the board seen this piece?
Yeah, we went out there, and if you remember, we turned right off Highway 96, right on top of the hill
Okay.
to enter it. And that's where it was. It's pretty grown up. And it really did, if you look at the map, it looked pretty bad from where we were. But if you get in there and drive around, it's a whole lot better.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If I may go back to Ms. Moore's, we did have a Buchanan addition on in 2015-16, and in looking at different versions, we took it off when we added that school as we got more development in the Christiana area and added a Murfreesboro South. We took off the Buchanan addition and added a Murfreesboro South elementary school.
Now, this property in Christiana, if I'm not mistaken, it's 7 miles from Christiana and 7 miles from Buchanan.
It's pretty close. One is,
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
I don't remember that. It may be 6 and 5, but
Yeah,
they're
but
right
it's something like
within a
that.
mile of each other,
Yeah.
centered between the 2.
I have another question. If we could go back to where we touched on talking about the city's new elementary
Yes.
school, because that's a question actually that we were talking to some of our fellow city school board members about this weekend, and then I'm not sure I really understand how it works, because we've got county elementary, we've got city elementary.
Right.
And my impression was that the new school that they're going to be building is really only being designed to alleviate overcrowding that they've already got at several of their city elementary schools. So is it going to do anything at all for us as a county with our elementary students?
We
How
really,
does that work?
yeah, we don't. Obviously, they'd have to live in the city limits to be able to go to a city school.
Okay.
I don't think they take. Do they take any from out of the county? I don't think so.
Unless they're needing to fill a school.
Right, and they don't need to fill a school. So we just don't. We'd have to look at our zone maps and see where
It's
where they
based on the
they
parents'
match up.
residence, if it's
That's
actually-
right.
okay.
I wouldn't. To be
That's what I
perfectly
thought.
honest, I don't think it would really alleviate Rockville.
I don't think it's going to.
I don't think it would.
One thing we have seen with some of the elementary schools in the past, because you've got that overlap, some of our zones are city and county.
Right.
And we may have some of the city residents off that draw of the new mortar. Seen that happen.
But if they're trying to alleviate the overcrowding of another school, it's not going to be impact. We'd have to really dig down and look at our map, drill down to look and see where the kids are.
So realistically, it's not going to help us.
I don't think it would help that much. It would be a temporary, if anything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at Rockville Elementary, do we have room to add on?
Now that we're on the sewer, yes. Now that we're on the city sewer, yes, sir. Before, we were not.
So we could add on to Rockville Elementary with an annex, say like, maybe like one of the middle schools or something?
If that's the board's wishes, yes, sir. We have the land area there, and the way that school is laid out with the spokes, yes, we could.
Would that be like a corridor connection, you know, enclosed corridor?
You could there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I would, I mean, I don't know, y'all speak, I would prefer that as far as safety is concerned.
With the smaller children, yes.
Okay. So the Rocky Fork Elementary there, as we can see, you know, we've got in the works there. Does anyone? I mean, I know we're looking at you know, the elementaries up here overcrowding. But does anyone have any questions about the Rock Springs Elementary Edition? We do have started some design. Have we done any design on that?
Yes, sir. It's 85% complete.
Got you. Okay. And then on the Laverne Middle Edition, as I understand, Mr. Sandvik, we've got a little bit over half of that design funding. Okay. Okay. Now, currently, we've got how many? And we've got like 1,100 and something students at Laverne Middle. Let me look at my map here. I'm reading here as 1,140. Okay, and let me double check this with our capacity. I've got a capacity somewhere around 1057. So we've got 2 portables. Is that what you was telling me earlier, Mr. Lee? 2 portables at Laverne Middle?
Yes, sir.
One of the things we've seen, though, with the exception of Rock Springs Elementary, is if you'll look at some of your feeder schools for Laverne Middle, it'd be Roy Waldron, Laverne Lake. You know, we're not seeing the kind of growth that we had seen there, but there are, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, there's some complexes that are going in down there currently. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's not like it won't occur. Now, one of the things I was talking to Mr. Estes about is, you know, I know we've built on the middle school at Blackman, and we've built on at Oakland Middle. You know, is that something that we want to try to do to Laverne Middle in the future? Is that something that, you know, that would alleviate their overcrowdedness, but wouldn't address some of the other?
You know, I'm not as worried about Laverne Middle with the numbers here
Right.
that are coming up as I would be the Christiana area,
Right.
Buchanan area, Oakland.
Right.
And we talked something about maybe we could rezone some of those.
Well, one of the things I think when we look at, we're opening up 2 new schools this year, and I know that, you know, we'll be pushing it a little bit to open up another school, but, you know, adding on is good. I mean, it helps us for a while. It's not good, but it helps us get our funding that we need. One of the questions I had asked is when I looked at the middle schools, you know, here, you know, in the south part of Rutherford County, Oakland, Siegel Middle, and Whitworth Buchanan. Where we're experiencing our issues currently is with Siegel Middle. Now, we do have some land. I think we've even was there some preliminary stuff just drawn up about not an actual design about Siegel Middle that was discussed earlier.
A couple of years ago.
Now, go through and tell me all the issues that can create for us.
The 2 main issues, and Mr. Sandvik knows a little bit more about it than I do, but back when that school was built, that site was a pretty tough site. So I don't see the addition being any different. I mean, the overall site is going to be fairly tough and possibly expensive to do. The other thing is where the addition needs to go, now that everything's kind of built around it, is where the chiller is. So we would have to relocate the chillers to do the addition. And that's not a quick or easy thing to do. So I would think we would need to do a little more research before we get to say that we would be ready to add on to Siegel Middle.
Gotcha. Well, our other choice would be something like this, and I know this is something, you know, it's a challenge for us, but if you really look at, you know, currently Oakland Middle's got 1,174. When they open up this annex, they're probably going to be able to at least 1,500 plus they could hold capacity. And then you look at when you look at Whitworth, they're sitting there with 837 where they can handle over 1,100 kids. If we chose to do so, it's not, you know, and like I said, this is all in theory. We could rezone some from Siegel to Oakland and from Oakland to Whitworth Buchanan, and probably push off at least 3, maybe 3.5, 4 years before we would need a middle school on that property in US 231 North.
Looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, talking about middle schools, Blackman Middle
Absolutely.
is way over capacity.
Right.
So as we're talking about these middle schools, I guess to me it kind of begs the question of this whole rezoning that we're going through right now for Rockville High and for Rocky Fork. Should we have looked at, or should we be looking at including the middle schools in that rezoning to see if we can?
Right. Well, one of the things you've got to be very cautious of is the amount of growth that's still being developed down on that end of the county. And if we go, and it would help maybe for a year or two, and then we would end up having to build another middle school. You know, in theory, if we worked it this way, it may work. If we in 2 years, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sandvig, 2 years, try to build a middle school on the west end of the county off of 96 and 840. We could conceivably do some rezoning, lower Blackman and lower Rockville Middle all at the same time, if you're willing to do the rezoning. And I think, yeah, and Ms. Moore, the capacity, and this is all, like I said.
Oh, so it's got a larger capacity then, so
right.
that 1492 number, okay, got it.
Its capacity, let me look at this again, with that annex is about 1,635.
Oh, okay.
But that will be filled up very quickly. I mean, I'm thinking maybe 2 years.
And all of that stuff out around
Right.
that area. There's 3 apartment complexes that are going to feed into that. There's 2 new subdivisions.
Right.
There's one that's just now getting cranked up that's 400 or 500 homes. That's the, if we rezone, we may be turning around in 2 years and trying to rezone.
Redoing it?
Yes, because of what's sitting there.
Okay.
In order us to prevent from having to do a school 2 year, shorter than 2 years, we would need to rezone Oakland Middle, Siegel Middle, and Whitworth Buchanan, and that would put us off. That could probably take care of us, because the fly in the ointment is the Siegel Middle. That's it. That's the one that's really creating an issue for us. Now, our options is we could add on there, but as he's talked about the challenges of the land in itself, and also I think you said we'd have to move the chillers, and that would be problematic in terms of the time we would be moving them, and that would be very problematic. And the other area would be down here with Rockville Elementary. you know, that would be another. Now, Rockville Elementary, I don't know if we mentioned this, but Rockville Elementary they do have some land. Is that correct? Okay. Mm-hmm. And you told us how many portables do we have currently at Rockville Elementary?
3 singles, 1 double.
Gotcha.
That's the piece of paper I think we really need, is that portable.
Portables.
Yeah, because normally we like to look and see how many portables to each school and see which one gives us our biggest bang for our buck.
Mm-hmm.
As far as
Right.
getting rid of, because that's what we want to do. Our objective here is get rid of portables as much as
Mm-hmm. That's right.
What,
Okay. Well, let's while you're doing that, let's look as we're thinking about the property on US 231 North, and if we can, I mean that's we're looking at you know, we know that Siegel Middle has quite a few portables, and we know that's an issue there. This year from 2017-18, there was a small difference, but not a measurable amount of difference of growth. But it's getting to the point where, you know, that's the one has to be addressed. Now we can address this in I guess we can address it in 3 different ways. We can add on to Siegel Middle. We can rezone Oakland Middle and Siegel and Whitworth, or we could build a middle school there, propose to build a middle school there. Now, realistically, if we rezoned, you know, we're opening up in January, I think you said January 13, the new annex at Oakland. That's going to open up some room there. And we're currently sitting with only, over at Whitworth Buchanan, only 837 students in a school that can easily handle 1,100. And, you know, that could address, that could put us in a situation where we can be several years down the road before we need it, and then that would direct us in 2 years to be able to build something to alleviate Blackman Middle and Rockville Middle.
how many students are we talking about zoning out of Siegel Middle? About
I think the first
300?
probably, but I think what we'd have to do is, if that was something we wanted to look at, we would actually have to, you know, we'd have to. I mean, that was a discussion that we're coming into that I haven't really looked at the zones and how many are in a current area that would be easily. But I would say 200 to 300, and then you could easily do the same thing with Oakland Middle to Whitworth Buchanan.
The only problem I see there is that there's still a lot of growth going on in all 3 areas. I mean, you got subdivisions being developed around Siegel, Oakland, and Whitworth Buchanan. So if we shift them around there, how much longer is it going to be before we have to
I think you're at
build
least.
something, rezone again?
I think you're at least. I don't think you rezone again. I mean, well, you will rezone when you build a middle school, but I think you could probably go at least 4 years without even having to address it.
Thank you.
All this land, Mr. Spurlock, when you, I know we got these 3 different pieces. When you plan on purchasing it?
Well, we're doing our due diligence now on the 2 pieces of property. The one on the 96 840 corridor, and the one out at, in fact, I think the one out in Christiana is taking place tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
What about the Matthews property at 231?
I think that's already been everything's, all taking place now is getting together and working through the number of acres and the price per acre.
That's the 95 acres, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Once you get that taken care of, you gotta go back to county commission, right?
That would be correct.
So this is a $10 million deal that's divided 3 ways?
I think it's 10.3, yes, sir.
Okay.
And that's where the negotiation takes place. I mean, I think we would all agree that eventually each one of these pieces of property is going to be necessary to build schools on. It's where do we build and when do we build? You know, we're opening up an annex this January that had, how many rooms? You told me how many classrooms was added to that. And Oakland Middle, right. Right. So that's a pretty substantial amount of room being added there. Now, Oakland Middle averaged 30 kids, actually 33.5 kids in the last 2 or 3 years in growth. Now they've got other growth out on 96. I mean that's going to grow. I agree with Mr. Young. There's a lot of growth going on. I think what we're looking at is how do we make it work under our budget in terms of addressing the overcrowdedness, at the same time not open up 2 schools a year, or attempting to open up 2 schools a year.
So when we talk about opening that January opening of the Oakland Middle addition, is that going to take away any of these 10 portables that they've got out there? I'm sure we do, but
I like the way you say that.
We're moving 9 portables from Siegel and Oakland into January.
okay. Thank you.
I guess would we all agree on Rock Springs Elementary addition?
What was their capacity?
All right, Rock Springs, let me see over here. Pull this up. All right, Rock Springs Elementary capacity is 1,003, and they're currently at 1,048. And I think you said they had two singles and 3 doubles, or how does that work?
2 singles, 1 double.
All right, okay, gotcha. And I think we already have the design, is that correct? Okay.
Spurlock, what's the capacity on Cedar Grove?
Cedar Grove? 935, and we have 1,070. Now, they will be going down some with this rezoning. I can't remember, quite frankly. I know the maps in front of that, what their proposed enrollment is going to be.
Dr. Spurlock, Director Spurlock, that several teachers from that area have given up their lunchroom and some other workrooms because they said they're completely at capacity and they almost have children in the hallway.
Right.
And they're the one that brought to my attention during the campaign that they weren't on the 5-year plan. I'm
gonna be honest with you. I don't. Cedar Grove.
Cedar
I think
Grove.
I remember hearing
Elementary.
something about the land, but I don't remember. The land is what I've heard the land being discussed for.
So there is additional land there?
There is some in the back, there is.
And what was the original plan for that?
I think it was just, yeah, a parcel that was purchased.
I was thinking more that talk of shifting out of that.
We're shifting some out for the Rocky Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was the plan.
Out of Cedar Grove.
Right.
So that will help there a little bit.
And I'll be honest, we ought to have to go back and look at my maps and see what the proposed, you may have it, Ms. Johnson, what was the numbers? Does it say it? Okay, on the proposed shifting, the shifting of the map here, Cedar Grove would be 764 students opening up. That's from if we did the rezoning like's been proposed. So they would drop somewhere around, what, 300 kids? Somewhere around, yeah, in that neighborhood.
And we all agree that middle schools is where we need to be focusing first. Then we need to put a game plan together, how we're going to attack that, and then look at our elementary schools. Our high school is going to be pretty much taken care of, right?
Yeah, I think it goes without saying our middle schools are the ones we need to look at.
Well, we're definitely gonna need the middle school out there off of 840 96.
I think we're going to probably need it out there on the north side too, with Siegel and Oakland, and I mean, we're going to buy a little time with Oakland, but I don't know we're going to buy that much time. It's a whole lot of.
I think if we move some, so we'd be moving some out. We could move 200 out and they'd drop them down to 890 or something like that. And, you know, and maybe move 100 or something back in. You know, it's not the perfect way to do it, but you're still sitting with a school like Whitworth Buchanan that's been slow growth for a long time. I mean, it opened the same time as Oakland Middle did. And I know they're growing. I mean, I know the Maple subdivision is increasing, but, you know, I don't know how quickly that was going to, you know, address the growth or fill up the school there.
You got that other one on Dilton Mankin too. Not many houses going in there, but it's starting to take off out there. Probably more than it has in the past, I guess is what I'm concerned about.
One thing's for sure, it's growing just about everywhere, and that's true. But it is the middle school. The middle schools are the ones that, as far as a building is concerned, is the one that we're having more growth in.
I've got two questions. On Christiana, out at Christiana Middle, is there any additional land out there for that one to build on?
I'm not sure. Mr. Lee, do you know?
A little bit is behind the school, and I have to look at it. Not 100% sure, but I do know most of that wooded area that's in behind the elementary this would be to the south of the middle school. That all is low land flood is down there. And I think we've got some land down in there, but it floods.
Second thing, on Laverne Middle down there, how much land is available to build on? 'Cause I know a lot of that land down there is not good for a whole lot.
Right, that's why we ended up with a larger athletic area, you know, below the elementary.
Correct.
That's why that ended up so large, is because it was so bad. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I can look at that as well.
But you feel confident we got the land down there to do that?
For the work, This addition that they're proposing, yes, sir.
It's not gonna affect their athletic fields and all that?
Not to my knowledge,
Okay.
but I'll double check that as well.
Or we currently have the middle school just tentatively put down on August on the 2021. Is that something we want to move up? Or 21, 22 actually? Is that something we want to move up to 2021?
Well, the first middle school on 2021, 231 North.
Well, yeah, that's on the 21, 22 school year projects for 21, 22 school year. Do we want to move that up? Is what I'm saying. You know, up there where we got the elementary school, and we can bump that down and move the middle school project up.
I would think so. I just looking at this really in detail today and now. When you look at the portables and you see that Siegel leads the world in portables, Siegel Middle, and Oakland has 10, Oakland Middle, and Whitworth Buchanan has a couple of hundred seats. I don't know if I would like to know. You said maybe it might give us 4 years if we rezoned, and if I thought that if that was right, and I don't know whether it is or not, but I would think maybe rezoning might be the way to go. But if it's not going to give us at least 3 years, at least 3, we probably need to look at building, just going ahead and biting the bullet and building. Now where, I don't know whether we.
And I say that with one concern, and that's what's happening in the West with Blackman and,
right.
and Rockville. You know, I mean, that's what my concern is. And of course, we've got it down here on the 22-23 school year, the 840 corridor middle school.
I know, Mr. Spurlock, and I think you've probably pretty much expressed it, because I'm sure that leadership at Siegel Middle School has talked with you. They've certainly talked with some of us. They're struggling.
Oh yeah.
With growth and large numbers, and 13 portables, which much to my surprise is. I thought Riverdale led the world in portables, but they actually trail Siegel Middle. We would essentially move students by rezoning. We would move them to Oakland, right? Am I right so far? And
then we would move some to Oakland and move some from Oakland to Whitworth.
There's zone line, which I haven't looked at in a while, but it comes pretty deep into the city, doesn't it? I'm talking about Whitworth Buchanan.
It does.
Well, I guess I'm saying I just a cursory look at this today. I think maybe middle school should be our first thought. I say that, and we're right in the middle of rezoning our high schools, but that's something we're going to have to think about.
Right.
We go back to our original building plan. I mean, the 3 ASAPs on here is land for the south side, and you got your middle school and then your elementary school.
Right.
And both of those being on the south side.
Right.
If that's where our importance is, I don't know that it's going to buy us the most portables as far as freeing up portables, but.
The only thing that's gonna help many portables is build schools.
Right.
And
We've been trying to do that since I've been on this board, still haven't.
Right.
we seem to have this conversation about this time every year. And we could use 2 middle schools and an elementary school pretty quick.
I agree. So as we look at this, this here, I mean, the 2021 school year, I think we said the middle school should take precedence. Is that what I'm hearing from everyone?
Yeah, August 2020, we ought to be opening up a middle school somewhere, I think.
And it, we could open it up at Walter Hill or 840, and either place is gonna help.
I think that's where we've got to make a decision in terms of where do we want to move. I mean, I think everybody would agree that we want the middle school to take precedence over the elementary school on the south side. But do we want to move this? I mean, are we thinking? I mean, are we thinking about building two new middle schools in the same year? And that would be the fiscal year of 2020, 2021, actually.
Well, in my opinion, we need them. Everybody else feel about that?
That's the reason we're in this situation. We keep putting this off, kicking the can.
Right.
It's caught up with us. We knew it was going to. So, if we need it, we need to be asking for it.
So I guess what we're saying is we want to put those two middle, and y'all, I'm not trying to put any words in anyone's mouth, the middle school on the south and the middle school on the north up on the projects for the 2020-21 school year.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think so.
And
And then we would just drop the elementary down to the, down 2021, 2022. And then go from there.
Well, the only other thing I see that wouldn't cost us as much money is if we were able to add on to Rockvale Elementary. That could, rezoning could get a little bit of that alleviated.
Okay, now let me ask on this right here. So we're moving up. We're moving up the one on north side up to the 2021. All right. Now, in terms of this, now when we're thinking south here, this is more of Christiana, if it's what I'm thinking. Is that what we're looking at there, Mr. Lee, on that middle school south? Because I see down, or is that just land acquisition down there? The 846 corridor middle school on the 2022. That's actually a middle school.
yes, sir.
That's the one I'm thinking. I'm thinking we need to move up. Now, this one, I don't know how this got up here. This one in the south end, was that the one was?
I was by South End. I was thinking South End. More
So we are okay. So it is the one on the 840.
Well, I was thinking on the southwest side.
Okay. So that's a mistake there. That's actually that 840 middle school quarter is actually the one on the south end. Okay. So if we move that up, then we would have two middle schools on the 2020-21 school year.
Right.
Now the question is, what do we do with Rock Springs Elementary there? The addition.
Drop it. I'd probably keep it there and drop the elementary. Drop that elementary down.
Right. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to drop that the south. Yeah, we're going to drop that down.
I think you're talking about adding an additional $4 million or something like that if you just leave it that way.
As we look at, you know, I mean, obviously we need two middle schools, but as we look at this going forward and we get into a situation of funding, which one? I know they're both urgent. I mean, let me say that they're both urgent. But is there any priority, I guess, as we look at these two sites?
I think the priority is to build two schools. Just go
Sounds good to me.
We just gotta tell them what we want. I mean,
We can do that.
they're gonna, I'm sure, not be happy about it, but
Okay. So our two middle schools there for the 2021 fiscal year, and along with the Rock Springs Elementary addition.
right.
And we would move down our elementary schools on the south side down. And what about Laverne Middle? Would we drop that down?
I think I'll drop that down until we see what the growth's gonna do. They're not that bad a shape.
Okay. All right.
And there's a possibility that on the north side, or even the west side, might help your middle school. Possible you could get some students out of that upper end up there in the north.
All this is pending on the land, right? We gotta get the land before we build a school.
Right, yes, sir. We feel like, I mean, last discussion I had with Mr. Clardy is that we feel pretty comfortable about the 840-96 corridor now. But we will know once the due diligence comes back and be able to determine what we have there.
Just going back, looking at portable, Smyrna Elementary, that's gonna, Rock Springs is gonna, Rocky Fork will help take care of that. As far as portables, right?
On the,
Smyrna Primary,
yes, it'll take care of some. As I had stated several times, we could have easily built 2 elementary schools down there on that end of the county.
Smyrna Elementary. Yeah, it's 8 portables sitting there, so.
Right.
We're going to be guilty of something. That's probably not a very good word, but it's possible, and I just listened to what Mr. Young said over there. We may be guilty for not asking for enough rather than trying to temper it before we get there. We've had that conversation before.
Oh,
I know we
absolutely.
have. And I think the 7 of us know that we don't want those 2 middle schools. We need them.
Need them, absolutely.
And if they were built right now, we could handle it. And something else that Mr. Young said, and Mr. Hodges said this many times, and it's very frustrating. It really is. Well, we've had for, I guess, since I've been on this board, and maybe before that, somewhere in the neighborhood of 140 some odd portables.
That's right.
And look at all that the board has added and the county commission has funded. How many we got?
Same amount.
Same number.
Actually,
We can't get rid of
That's
it.
right.
We've added this
Grow
year.
on you.
Beg pardon?
We added this year.
That's
Yeah, we
correct.
did, Alan. We did. You're right.
Oh, if you want to think about something, Mr. Jordan.
Yes, sir.
Portables have always been implied to be temporary. We are re-roofing portables now, which means that they're 20 years plus.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry at that.
I mean, I've signed requisitions for 4 in the last 2 weeks. To
re-roof.
to put a roof on a portable, because the roofs that are there, they're good for 15 to 20 years, and we've taken care of them, we cool sealed them and all that, but we're roofing portables now.
Something else we might want to warn our citizens about is in the year 24, 25, we'll rezone high schools again. So, just so you get plenty of warning, we want to put that out there.
Looking forward to that.
More good news, right?
Okay. Oh, man.
You know, something I guess too with these portables and that, you know, especially ones at elementary schools or depending on the layout of the schools, we've got safety concerns too. And with everything that's going on these days and efforts that we're trying to make to better secure our schools, yeah, portables are bad news.
Well, do we look like got a plan?
We're moving up the two middle schools up to 2021, and we're taking down the elementary down, and also Laverne Middle Addition down. Do we want to, and it's not even on here anywhere, since do we want to just hold tight and see what the Murfreesboro City School will do for Rockville?
I can't see it helping much.
I can't either. So that means that we would be addressing, if we move that down to the 2021, 2022, that would be when that would be coming back up again.
They've got overcrowding themselves at Cason Lane and Scales and Overall Creek. I don't believe that's going to help. It might help 50 students or 100.
I really don't think it either. I agree with you. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Do we want to put the rock? Do we want to add a Rockville addition there, or you know, we do if we move Laverne, or just keep it there and see what we got at Laverne Middle?
I think we could maybe watch those for this year.
Okay.
What do y'all think? Oh, we could use it.
This one's gonna go down. That one's gotta go back down here somewhere.
Director, a couple other, just real quick questions. The Laverne, Smyrna restrooms and concessions that been designed, how long has that been designed? Do I even dare ask the question? Okay, well, it's probably ready to build then. I would think. Do we have any hope for that at all? I mean, I don't even want to discuss. I know we've discussed this many times. I was just,
you know, I really know. I mean, typically they're used, I guess, 5 times a year in football, maybe soccer 5 times or something like that.
Not so much Laverne. Smyrna's, if you did, it would become more like a Blackman or a Stewart's Creek because of the way the baseball, softball field is. So they could actually use theirs a little bit more. Laverne's not laid out that way, so it would be correct. It would be mostly 5 or 6 times for football and 4 or 5 times for, you know, maybe 6 for soccer.
Right. Not that they don't. I mean, I agree. Now, deserve it. You know, and I recall back in, I guess 1988 was when those schools were built. And at that time, if you recall, Riverdale and Oakland didn't have a stadium. And it was about 2001, so that's 13 years before Riverdale and Oakland got a stadium. And I guess that's 13 years, we're 13 years since they got a bigger restroom and stands, so it's over 13 years. I know y'all have been talking about it for a long time.
well, yes, I guess, I don't know. How many years, Terry? 10, 12? About 10?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
And I'm not arguing with Mr. Sandvik. I would never do that because I just lose. But if you have what somebody would consider a safety and security situation at Smyrna High School, and let's remember that this is a team that has been in the state championship game 3 times fairly recently, and they're plenty good and they draw big crowds. So if you have a security and safety situation there, if you have it once a year,
Let me add something
That's
to that.
too much.
Mr. Jordan, let
Yes,
me
sir.
add something to that. They're the only school that's won back-to-back state championships in football.
That is correct. That's right.
Just throwing that in there as a Smyrna alum, okay?
Well, and I think the commissioners share y'all's frustration with that. We have not had a good source of money. I've had commissioners say, well, is there any way we can come up with $500,000, $1 million? It's hard to come up with it. We have had enough of a need for new classrooms and buildings that's where the resources have.
I understand that argument.
Commissioners who do support that and board members who have supported it. It's hard. There was a hope, well, maybe we could fit them into our capital projects budget. We don't have enough. We could use more capital projects money than we get now. We will be talking about that as we move on. Yeah, it's coming.
We'll just ask our new governor. No matter who our new governor is, we'll just ask him. But my other question was on the land purchases. I see here that for these various schools that we were hoping to build, what is the status on the actual land? I thought the county commission had kind of.
Yes, right. We would like to have something to come forward with the south side and the 840 corridor prior to the end of this year. The other property, as I understand, prefers the closing to take place, the one on 231 North, the closing to take place at the first of the year. Now, we should, I know Mr. Clardy told me they were cutting the field over in Christiana to do, so that get the opportunity to do the due diligence and also clearing it out on 840. That's supposed to occur tomorrow, as I understand it.
The what now is supposed to occur tomorrow?
The due diligence, checking the soil.
Oh, okay.
And things of that.
We've had so much rain, they haven't been able to harvest the beans out there. And we didn't want to.
Well, put this into words where I can understand it. Have they promised us the money for this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
10 million, yes.
Okay.
10.3 million, yes.
All right.
All they're asking for us is to select and come back and tell them
Right.
what our land is.
And
And
get their approval.
and get
Right, get their approval.
But they have appropriated the money, yes.
Okay.
And one of the things I'll add too is that negotiation with the pricing of the land too, so that it fits into that price range, making sure that we have.
10.3 was it? Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I did not change any of the numbers from the last version of this because they're unknowns at this point. I just left them on.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up for me. I appreciate it.
The money's appropriated. We're just trying to get the land. The land has been more of a challenge than what we thought. I think we were appropriated the money more easily than we are finding the land. The price of land as you get further away out on the west corridor, due to the competition between contractors and things that are, developers, is becoming quite a challenge.
Director Spurlock, could we go back to Laverne High School and the concession stands? Am I reading this correctly? It's $3 million for the construction?
That's with everything.
That's a piece?
Right. That's for both Laverne and Smyrna. That was current. Is that current numbers?
No, sir, we haven't gone back and looked at that in a number of years.
So that was probably.
That's the number that's been rolling for the last.
So we really don't have a hard.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have.
But yes, it's what that is a stadium expansion and a restroom / concession stand like we have at Siegel or Oakland or any of the others at both schools.
So that's new construction, not?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are the restrooms up to code, handicap and everything at Laverne and Smyrna?
My guess would be no.
Okay. So I know we spent like $1 million on the dirt, but that happened, but I think, you know, our end of the county needs some love.
We've said that for years.
Well,
We've tried
let's
to.
stop kicking that can down the road.
Yeah, you go talk commission, because I've campaigned for that for years. It started out $500,000. Right?
Well,
That was the original estimate.
well, and we all know that it's not going to get any less expensive.
I've challenged people to go down there, go down to Laverne, go to a football game. Go
Well, we
sit
took
on-
them down there on a tour a couple of
Yeah,
years
go over
ago.
and sit on the visitor side. And I guarantee you it'll change your perspective. You go over and do it. I mean, it's, like I said, I guess it's probably been 10 years push for that. And
Well, Laverne, in general, has, and the northern part of the county has received a lot of love, but it hadn't received any on this right here. But this has been going on for at least 10 years. And I went to a Laverne Middle School game this year, and quickly got bored with the game, which Laverne won easily, and walked around the stadium and just looked the whole place over. And I'm sorry, I love everything Wolverines, but it's a mess. It absolutely, it's just not good.
Would we have any liability with them not being up to codes?
I don't know about the codes now. I don't know the codes, but I think I may be getting in an area here where I don't. I worded it very carefully with safety and security. I tried to, but clearly new restrooms are needed at both, and I think and concession stands. I didn't go to Smyrna this year, so I don't really remember as much as I should, but you have a situation at Smyrna, which you don't have at Laverne, in that the entire visitor crowd, the last time I was there, if he wants to use, gosh, we've been over this so many times, if he wants to go to the restroom or the concession stand, they've got to get up and walk all the way around the field and go through a gate, and people are just crammed in.
A bottleneck.
Oh, a bottleneck is right, good word. And I don't think that's good. I really don't, particularly maybe feelings are running kind of high in the ball game or whatever. I just don't think it's good. Now, Laverne didn't have that kind of problem, but they had other kind of problems in some old facilities, which are now, they're 12, they're 30 years old. And they could use some updating, and the visitor side sure needs some work. But it's not from lack of, but Mr. Hodge is exactly right. Gosh, we tried every way in the world to get this done, and we got it through Health and Ed maybe twice. Other times couldn't get it through Health and Ed, and I was the chairman. I was sitting right there and argued the best I could for it, and some of you did the same. And when we did get it out and we got to the commission floor, we never could get it passed. And we finally, one of the commissioners told us, quit bringing this up here. That's a quote.
my theory is keep taking it.
Sir?
My theory is we keep taking it.
Oh, I wouldn't argue that point at all.
Well, how many new commissioners do we have this year? So maybe I need to,
4 or 5
Okay.
new commissioners. And these are people that have generally, I think, on this one issue, we certainly disagree with them. I think they have been extremely helpful on a lot of other things that we've asked for. But for some reason, Mr. Sandvig maybe gave you some reasons, but for some reason they just not accepting this right here. They're not doing it.
Could we not get a more definitive cost on that, Mr. Lee? Yeah, that would be a good starting point.
yes.
What'd you say it started out at, Mr. Hodge? Did you say $500,000?
$500,000 each.
A piece, so $1 million.
One in
$1 million. But I think we were looking at duplicating what they had at Oakland and Riverdale at that time, right?
Okay, so that was
First side.
9 years ago. Well, yeah, well, Okay, well, it's gonna touch 4 million now. It'll be in the neighborhood. We're over 3.
The last time we looked at it, and I'm speaking from memory, was the concession stands and the restrooms at each school, and then there was a little bit of an addition to the visitor bleachers with handicap access to the bleachers on both sides.
Got that done. Got that?
Yes, we got that on the home side,
Okay. Okay.
not on the visitor side.
The visitors cannot be handicapped.
Well, they can come to the home side.
Okay. All right.
So that can that has been continuously kicked for the last 10 years is rolling over about $500,000 every one of those years that we're looking at paying for this, right? Maybe $250,000.
Yeah, but we can relook at it, yes.
We need,
This love that Tabby spoke about down there is pretty expensive, isn't it?
we need to get a good number,
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
And I guess we'll just leave it, do we want to leave it, I guess bring it down, or what do we want to put it on?
I just want to leave it where it's at.
Yeah,
Now,
it's
I'd
right
hate to
there.
see us bring it down again, because then we're just contributing to kicking that can.
But this is on the, we'll have to bring it down because this is on the 18-19.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so we'll have to bring it down to the 19-20. Yeah.
Well, wait.
Bring it down to next year, Mr. Spurlock?
The 19-20?
Yeah,
Yes.
all right.
Are we wanting to look at the expansion on any of these schools for next year? Are we looking at anything like that? Or that's right, staying on the 2021. Gotcha.
Spring is staying, but moving Laverne.
We're moving Laverne. Gotcha. Okay. And bringing up the 840-96 corridor middle school.
Well, Mr. Spurlock, with the numbers on Rockville Elementary, not to do this again, but in Blackman Elementary, should we not consider some kind of an expansion in that area?
Well, if we build this in reality, I mean, and once again, this goes back to looking at the zone lines. If we build this middle school at 840 and 96, we could do some rezoning to take to come off, you know, do the kind of deal where we could do a 3-school rezoning. Actually, it'd be more than that. It'd be Blackman Middle, Rockville Middle, and whatever we call that school.
I'm sorry, I was talking more of the elementary school.
Oh, you're talking about the elementary? The elementary, what we'd have to do is look at is our choices would be to wait and see what for the 20. I guess we're moving it down to 2022, 23. That's a long way off. Or we can move it up to the 2021, 22 for an addition. Because we're moving Roy Waldron already down. We're moving them down.
Because both schools, I mean, I know all our schools basically have portables, it feels like.
Right.
With their numbers and their growth between Blackman Elementary and Rockville Elementary, it looks like maybe we might consider an expansion. If we're going to be moving that elementary down.
We can move that up. Anyone have any thought on that? Adding on a Rockville elementary addition?
again,
You know,
need it.
you would have, you would have the 2 middle schools. Is that correct, Mr. Sandvig? And then the Rockville addition. Is that correct? That's what I was gonna say. We'd have 2 additions and 2 middle schools. Only thing we need now is a truck to load up all that gold. I mean, is there, you know, that's quite a bit.
Just waiting for somebody to shout out, "Show me the money."
I think you, as far as the addition goes on Rockville Elementary, I think that's probably the cheapest route in the near future. Whether you put it on 20 or 21 or 21 and 22, I think it needs to be listed
Okay.
as an addition.
But if we put it on 2021, we would have 2 additions and 2 middle schools.
Correct. I don't know what kind of dollars you're looking at, Mr. Sandvig. But you're moving down Laverne Middle, right?
Right.
You're bumping it down.
Right.
So I guess at Rockville Elementary, you're probably looking at the same as you would Rock Springs. I guess probably 11 million range. Is that right? So realistically, you may be a little bit cheaper than the 118.
How close is the Rockville Elementary lines or to the Rockville Middle lines? I mean, as far as the zoning is concerned. I mean, the elementary is, their enrollments are really, really close right now today. And we're going to add, what, 300-400 seats, whatever it is, to Rockville Elementary, which is a good place to add on. The land is good, it's level, we're in pretty good shape there, so, you know, and everything. But then they're going to go right across the street. I mean, I'm just pointing that out, where there's more students. I mean, we're not adding on there, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm not saying we should, I'm just pointing that out. We can add almost anywhere y'all want. We can build a school pretty much wherever you want. And it'll be full, I guess.
I think we'll at least put Rockville Elementary on 2021, what is it, 21, 22. Right.
Well, you got, if you move it up to 2020, 2021, you've got 2 additions and 2 middle schools.
I was going
if you move it
down to 21, 22.
Right. Now, is there anything that we want to bring down to 22, 23, or anything we want to bring up to 22, 23? Because currently, if we move this 840, 96 quarter, that's actually what Mr. Sandvig had designated as Murfreesboro South End. So that's actually nothing there for projects for 2022, 2023.
You're gonna need an elementary school, right?
That 840, 96 quarter will be 22, 23, elementary school.
Right. In elementary, right. Move it up, because it's currently at 23, 24. We'll move it up to 22, 23.
I thought it was on 22, 23 already.
No, if you look down below it, it says 840, 96 quarter elementary school. If you want to move that up, we can move that up, because we'd already moved that 840-96 corridor middle school up.
I think that'd be a good idea.
We can do that. Okay.
Where's this, where we buying this land? Where's that come in? Right here.
Anybody else got anything on this?
We have another meeting on this same topic before we present this to the commission.
Absolutely.
Sometime in December, or early January.
Do that. Do that.
I guess I got one question here. I know we're talking about moving that 840-96 corridor up to middle school.
Mm-hmm.
You keep talking about the south end middle school. Where's that going to end up at?
Well, I think that's what he was, I'm hoping that's what he was referencing. Were you not, which one would you make calling the south end? Would you not? That's what I'm saying. So correct me if I'm wrong, to you, the 840-96 corridor is south. Right. Gotcha.
I understand that, but I guess what I'm getting at, this land we're going to buy at Christiana for 2 or 3 schools.
Southeast.
Where's it listed at on this sheet? Or where are you going to put it at?
Well, you got 2 for next year, and then the other middle is moving down, right? So that's the 3 locations.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you're doing, and I'm asking the question along with Mr. Oz, if you're doing 840 and 96, and you're doing Walker Hill, which would be the north.
Right.
Then
You moved the south down.
is going to be
Are you going to move it down to,
2021.
Right.
Because your other 2 are
Moving.
19 and 20.
Right. Yeah. If you move this, if you move the south end with that, I'm assuming you're calling that Christiana, but you were thinking that it did. I hear you. Right. So if we move that one down to it wouldn't be it would be the 2021, 2022, right?
what are we going to put in 22, 23? I guess.
That's what I was asking, the same thing.
Is that going to be the south?
That could be the, well, we're already looking at, we've already moved did we not move a middle school up there? I mean, we're already doing the middle school, right? So we're moving the south side, Murfreesboro, the Christiana, Barfield and Rock Spring, or Rocky, what is it? Rockvale? Rockvale. We're moving that down, right, Mr. Sandvig? I'm getting all confused here, buddy. Okay. Okay. So that's the one we're moving down. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Right. Right.
So far we are.
Okay.
I'm
Right.
still trying to figure out where this other middle school's going.
Okay. We got one in the we moved up the 840-96 middle school corridor up from 2022 up to I guess is it 2020 and 2021? Does that sound right?
That's
Oh, you moved it up to,
I thought we moved it up to 1920.
2021.
Okay, so we're moving up the, right, okay. Right. Right. Okay, gotcha. So the only thing we're doing is swapping those two.
In 20, we've got, opening in 20, we've got 2 middle schools, Rock Springs Elementary.
Right. Addition, right. Gotcha. And then we're just moving that, down. Okay, gotcha.
We're making sure we understand.
That's right. That's right. That's what I've got down here. Rockville edition. Then the elementary 840 96 quarter opening August of 22. Does that sound right? Moving it up?
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
And maybe this would be something for us to think about more the next time we have this discussion. Just looking, since we're moving this south side Murfreesboro, we had talked about that in previous years as something that would also cover us with that kind of that mix, because that one we specifically said it would help Christiana and
Right.
Vale.
Right.
So we may need to clarify. Is it
Right.
more south
Yeah,
side,
that's true.
And then the 840 corridor,
Yeah, that,
more Rockvale, before we do any
Right.
on a Rockvale edition.
right. So, yeah, that's the one that could help out 3 schools.
Yeah.
Right.
Depending on where it is.
Right. Well, we know we're buying land.
Right.
And that would alleviate the need to actually add on to Rockville.
When we gonna meet again on this?
I mean, we can meet, Ms. Michaels when we,
I mean, I'm good with whatever. If you just I'd like to see you make corrections and send them to us. And, you know,
if you get those, sometime this week and we can get them out to you, and what do we, Ms. Michaels, what do we have available?
We have, the week of the 19th, we can meet, Monday, the 19th, 20th, or the next week, we have a board meeting. We can meet, the first week in December, maybe the 4th, would be a Tuesday.
Is everybody,
The 6th would be a Thursday, December.
Suits me.
okay.
You want to go November or December?
December. Is that right?
Please.
Let's do the 4th.
4th and,
Wednesday the 4th then? Wednesday the 4th? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, December 4th.
We got the rezoning meeting at Stewart's Creek on Monday the 3rd.
Or do we want to do it on the 6th? Or, anyone matter? You think?
I can do it either day.
Let us decide and then we'll figure it out tomorrow.
Okay. I think also before we get to this, you know, obviously we'll have this part right here, our building plan, but we'll kind of, instead of putting this all out here, if it's okay with you guys, we will go with the schools that we're looking at, working with, and kind of eliminate so much, make it a little bit larger print for those of us that have a hard time. And then eliminate that and just work with the ones that we're working with. This is good. This is good, though.
All right, is that it on that? Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to any other business. Okay, no other business. We're adjourned.